We've all been there, right? That feeling of frustration when you spend hours, hours, trying to learn something, only for it to just disappear. What if I told you that you could work with your brain's natural wiring instead of fighting it? Well, in this explainer, we're going to do just that. We're hacking memory itself by digging into the powerful science of spaced repetition. It's probably one of the most maddening parts of being a student or just trying to learn something new. You pull an all-nighter, you cram for that huge exam, and you feel like, yes, I've got this. And then, a week later, poof, it's gone. But listen, this isn't a personal failure. It's not you. It's a universal feature of how our memory is built. And understanding why this happens is the absolute first step to fixing it. So this really brings us to a tale of two study methods. On one side, you've got massed practice, which, we all know is cramming. It feels super productive in the moment, but it's really just a short-term fix. On the other side, there's spaced repetition, a scientifically proven method for building knowledge that actually lasts. Today, we're putting them head-to-head. Okay, so to really get why spaced repetition is such a superpower, we have to start with its total opposite, the science of forgetting. And it might sound kind of weird, but your brain is literally designed to forget things. And believe it or not, it's actually a feature, not a bug. It's how our brains filter out all the unimportant junk we see every day. The story behind this is actually pretty fascinating. Way back in the 1880s, the psychologist named Hermann Ebbinghaus basically turned himself into a human guinea pig. For years, he memorized thousands and thousands of nonsense syllables, just random combinations of letters, and then he tracked exactly how quickly he forgot them. All that meticulous work led to this, the forgetting curve. It's basically a predictable map of how our memory just naturally fades away. And this shows you just how shockingly fast that decay is. After only one day, there's a massive drop in how much you remember. Within just 3 days, you can lose up to 95% of new information if you don't do anything to reinforce it. By day 7, forget about it. Only a tiny fraction is left. This is your brain's default setting. Here's a great way to picture it. Just think of your memory like a phone battery. When you learn something new, you've charged it up to 100%. But even if you just let it sit there, that charge naturally drains over time. The forgetting curve is just a chart of that drainage. So the real question is, how do we recharge that battery at just the right moment to keep it topped up? And that is exactly where the solution comes in. Instead of fighting this natural process, we can actually use it to our advantage and work smarter. This next part is all about the spaced repetition solution and how to finally work with your brain, not against it. So what is spaced repetition? Well, it's really just the act of strategically recharging that memory battery. The technique is brilliant in its simplicity. You review information at longer and longer intervals, and you time it specifically to interrupt that forgetting curve right before the memory completely fades. Every single time you do this, you make the memory stronger, and you actually flatten that curve, which means it takes even longer for you to forget it the next time. 74%. Let that number sink in for a second. According to a huge analysis of 29 different studies, that is how much more effective spaced learning is for long-term memory compared to cramming. That's not a small improvement. That is an absolute game changer. And you can see the proof right here in the data. One study put the two methods head-to-head. People who crammed remembered about 60% of the material. Not bad. But the people using spaced repetition, they hit an average of 80%. That is a huge jump. We're talking the difference between a C and an A-, just by changing when you study. I love this metaphor because it's not just a nice idea, it's actually neurologically true. Every time you successfully pull a memory out of your brain, you are strengthening the physical connections between your neurons. You are literally building a stronger, faster pathway to that information. It really is a workout for your brain. So, how can you actually put this into practice? Well, a classic, totally low-tech method is called the Leitner system. It's a super clever way to do spaced repetition with just some simple flashcards and a few boxes. You put all your cards in box 1. You get a card right, it graduates to box 2, which you review less often. But if you get it wrong, it goes all the way back to box 1 for daily review. It's simple, but it is incredibly effective. All right, the science is clear, we get it. But knowing the theory is one thing and actually putting it into practice is a whole other story. So how do you actually integrate this into your life? Let's build a practical toolkit you can start using today. You don't need a complicated algorithm to get going. Seriously, you can just follow this simple schedule. After you first learn something, look at it again 1 day later. Then 3 days after that, then 7, then 14. But if you only remember one thing from this, make it this. That first review within 24 hours is the most critical step. That's when the forgetting curve is steepest, and it's your absolute best chance to flatten it out. Of course, trying to manage a schedule like this can sound completely overwhelming, especially if you have a ton of stuff to learn. And hey, you are not alone in feeling that way. This is a real question from a student on Reddit who just felt buried under thousands of flashcards, wondering where you even begin. Okay, this toolkit is going to make it manageable. First, let software do the heavy lifting for you. Apps like Anki, Quizlet, and Vuvo are built to manage the schedule automatically. Second, and this is so important, use this system for reviewing, not for learning things the first time. Understand the material first, then use this to lock it in. Third, you have to focus on active recall. Don't just flip the card over. Force your brain to actually retrieve the answer. That's the muscle building part. And finally, just be consistent. A perfect schedule that you never stick to is way worse than an imperfect one you actually do. Any review is always better than none. So there you have it. This is a real, scientifically backed method to learn more and learn it more efficiently. It proves that it's not about having a good memory. It's about using the right system, a system that works with your brain's design. So, now that you know the secret to making knowledge stick, what will you master first?